Hey guys, it's Saru, and I had considered for the last few days to talk about the state of Swords of Legends Online. The good things, the bad things, and everything in between with the help from my community. Mind you, it was a little late and I kind of told everybody to submit their things a tad bit last minute, but still. I figured I'd talk about the game, clear up some misconceptions around it, and hopefully clear your mind when it comes to this game. So, let's get right into it. So before I begin, I'll let you know who I am in the Swords of Legends community to make this type of video. I am a content creator for the game, yes, and that does mean that sometimes I'll play other games. However, with Swords of Legends Online, I've been playing it since alpha daily. I've cleared all the dungeons, I've cleared all the raids and their difficulties, and I've done all of the content up to date, and even created my own downloadable files for the game's Deadly Boss mod or Captain's Assistant, of which has been downloaded over 20,000 times by the community. I've also created a bunch of guides and have helped players in guiding them through the game because, let's be honest, it can be a little confusing. I'm always looking at global chat in case someone needs help and always checking LFGs to see what people are requiring. My guild has always been pretty much the first one to reach the max levels from level 6, 7, 8, and 9, and almost on our way to level 10, the max level. We were the first in North America to unlock the Alliance costumes, and all that to say, it's not a brag. It's not a flex, it's just to say that I know what I'm talking about. I have been here with everybody, with all of the players, and we help one another, in North America at least. I'm not sure about EU, I don't play EU. So I'm not basing this off of being a content creator that occasionally plays, I'm basing this off of my following thoughts as a player that has been part of the game since alpha and continues to play, and in fact is even part of the volunteer QA team that helps with bug identification, fixing, and looking at future content. So just letting you guys know that I'm not just being here as a content creator, I'm talking to you guys as a player. So that's out of the way. So let's start. So first things first, let's talk about Swords of Legends Online and what exactly it is, because I feel there is a complete misconception about it. I believe the overall gaming community for MMOs has been so deep in the world of grinding and pushing content to the point of wearing adult diapers, especially from Korean MMOs, that they're not entirely sure what to make of this game. So in the simplest terms, let me explain. Swords of Legends Online was created in China as an MMORPG based on this entire game series called Swords of Legends. Although it's an entirely different name, I'm not going to butcher it, but basically this MMO is created for players that had lots of work in real life. They would come home and wasn't sure how to catch up. So basically they recreate this base MMORPG that players can come home, they would buy some time by the hour, and the game would make sure to respect that hour of work. So you would get your dailies done, your weeklies done, and when you had to do anything else, you pretty much had your time. So if you had your dungeons and raids, they could occupy the remaining time that you might need without sacrificing a lot of the time that you subscribe to. That was the base creation of this game. You would subscribe by the hour, so let's say paying $10 a month for the worth of hours in that game, and it would only count the hours that you are actually logged into the game, thus respecting your time. So if I buy 1,000 hours and I only played 1 hour, I pretty much did what I needed to do. This wasn't designed to be an MMO that we've known for years where we go in, grind until arthritis becomes one with your soul, and it also wasn't designed for the 5-head community to run in and pay your way to the top. This was something of a passion project that was created as a way for all players to just enjoy the game, respect the time that you have in the game, and do other things in the meanwhile while you wait for more content or your time gates are up. Whether or not it's the right move for the Western audience, that's a different story altogether, but I'm just letting you know what this game is. So let's take this into account. This is the first ever MMORPG in recent years from the East that has made its way here and is absolutely adamant on being non-pay to win. You can't buy anything that affects your gameplay. You can't even effectively do RMT. Sure, players can go in right now, they could buy costumes or whatever for their friends and receive gold as payment, but even then, the game addresses this in a future patch where gold becomes obsolete because you can get location-based currencies instead of that and you can grind it out. So instead of global currencies such as gold or iron or whatever it's called, you get currencies for every city. Right now, even if you have thousands of gold, you can't do anything with it other than buying housing items. And even then, you can get the housing items and craft them without paying gold because you can transform your materials from your housing garden into a special type of currency that replaces the gold that you need to craft housing items or even learn the recipes. So that's Swords of Legends Online. It's a game that was designed around the working man in China that would come home, play a little, get a good amount of gold to upgrade things, and then you're done. Now let's talk about some of the reasons that players leave. I've seen different perspective, I've heard different answers to this, and I don't know, maybe my opinion, my experiences might shed some light on this and maybe change your mind. This is not a game that players are used to. Yes, you can catch up easily, very easily. In fact, in China, there are over 9 catch-up mechanics right now that include gear and leveling that allows players to be caught up in current content in no time at all. Every time a new class is released, this happens. It's a game that fully respects your time and doesn't force you to stay on all of the time. With that said, players are not used to this. Players are used to grinding a dungeon until they've ran it 100 times and calling it a dead game. Now we've kind of switched that off and it's more calling it a dead game while an active community continues to play it. Players also tend to follow content creators in Discord chats with the constant bringing up of Steam charts where the game was primarily focused and marketed towards Gameforge. Enough so that players ended up switching from Steam to Gameforge due to the bonuses that you would get at the time during the pre-order stage. In the beta, you would get an additional 20% or something from purchasing Crimson coins or something like that, and originally it was only from Gameforge, so much so that hundreds of players ended up refunding Steam and going over to Gameforge. Something eventually changed because it was very controversial, and Gameforge announced that it would also do it for Steam. Some people switched back to Steam with the promise from Gameforge that they would transfer the data, others, well, they were lazy and they didn't. On launch, the Epic Games Launcher became another platform that the game would be released on, and to say that no one uses Epic Games due to personal bias is alarming because many do, even I do. Even if it's for free games that it gives out, it's still an alright platform. It's not as bad as Microsoft Store, but I digress. Players kept seeing Steam numbers that are obviously affected by games at the time, such as Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, by the beta and eventual release of New World, Back 4 Blood, and trust me, there is a huge love in the Steam community for the Left 4 Dead series and other titles. This isn't a game that requires you to stay on. Why would you? You do your dailies, you do your weeklies, and you're good to go. This does eventually change after Season 2, which should be around January or February, where Fox Mage and Warrior come into play and bring new dungeons, raids, and areas to explore. So yeah, people are going to log off. There's no reason to stay logged in after you're done. And quite frankly, people got tired of it. And understandably so. They rather would have a game with constant progression where they're not locked out of dungeons and raids, and I understand them, because I'd love that too. But then one would have to ask themselves a question. In this day and age, where Swords of Legends Online is getting new content every 2 weeks, roughly, and is already being called recycled trash due to dungeons bringing over newer difficulties with different mechanics, and also being called a dead game within the last 2 to 3 months, would that not make it worse? Eventually, there are over 40 dungeons and raids, so what is the problem? That brings into question, if not, what else could be deterring players? Well, that's clearly optimization and server issues. Yes, there are optimization issues. This has been known since day one. Players have always known this, and if not, you must not be participating in the community. The current engine it uses is the Havoc Vision engine, which is older than time itself. Seriously, making games from early as 2004 with Gacha and eventually another MMO that players know as Soulworker. The engine is not great, and that's why the developer addressed it way before the game ever hit Western shores, way before it was even announced. Unreal Engine 4 would be the new engine, and the developer was going to completely change their game from Havoc to that new engine. Keep in mind, this developer has also worked on the previous titles of this game under the same engine. Yet, they were transparent about it and said they maxed out the engine, they can't optimize it anymore, so that's why they're changing. And it will take time. Enough time that it's coming next year, and once China gets it, we would get it. That doesn't mean that we have the exact same content as China. So yes, optimization, frame drops, issues with that sort of thing, especially in PvP, which is something altogether different and I'll talk about in a moment. And even just raids and dungeons forcing players to do 10 to 14 player raids instead of the full 20 player experience due to frame issues. That gets fixed soon. So most people wonder, I'll just wait it out till then, and then the catch-up mechanics are wonderful, and once it releases, I'll just be caught up and play with my friends again. These are things I've seen in global, in Discord, in my own communities, real reasonings of why people quit. Optimization. And yes, the server issues are bad, especially since they're based in the eastern side, and North America only has one server. They do use different technologies to supplement different servers inside of the server itself, so that's kind of interesting, but at the end of the day, the ping is terrible. Though not a huge majority of the player base likes PvP, there is a significant amount, enough to warrant that the players would move over to a game such as New World, where it's open world PvP. And it's backed by a AAA game studio such as Amazon Game Studios, albeit a little bit flaky due to how many projects it's shut down, but that's neither here nor there. And they can guarantee to fulfill the type of content they want, which is PvP. Mass skill or not with better performance, that's what they want. Some of my own guild members have switched over because the PvP over there is more fun, as they like to say, and I can't blame them. Solo, like I said, isn't a game that forces you to do anything. You just play and have fun and get off whenever. You don't feel like you're missing out. Most MMOs like to prey on that. You might not know this. Fear of missing out. You turn off the game knowing you could stay up another hour farming something or thinking of ways that you can get better items or whatever the case. It's something that just doesn't exist in solo. If you miss a daily, you can make it up the next day. Pay to win. In some sense of irony, Swords of Legends Online is a game that is not pay to win whatsoever. Not in the slightest, but I have seen people wishing it was. Which brings to discuss a bigger issue. It wasn't that long ago where players all rallied against pay to win, against predatory practices of the dreaded loot boxes and gacha style games. So much so that a rich millionaire named Steven Sharif decided to make his own MMORPG called Ashes of Creation, which would start to create a mold of players of not wanting pay to win whatsoever in their MMORPGs. They wanted their money and time respected. Over time, we would see more and more titles with promises of no pay to win, and I feel like that has died down. Enough so that I have seen more than my fair share of players just simply say they don't care if a game is pay to win, not anymore at least, and argue that players should just get a job or get a better job or find a hobby instead. Considering some of the names that I've seen say this have been the same names that I've seen fight the good fight, as one would say, a few years ago against this type of things to begin with, but now they're for it. That just begs the question, just how many players are for pay to win? And just based on the hype of Allion, I would say more than enough. Regardless, the game is not pay to win, it has no subscription service whatsoever, but players don't seem to really care about it because the content is not there, at least for them. It's not challenging enough for them, and again, this is a casual game. So I've seen people talk about the community, that Swords of Legends is a toxic game in that sense. I don't understand how or where. Every single MMORPG has its toxic small side of the community. Hell, every single MMORPG that I've played, there's always been that same guild or group of players, same names, every single time, that come in with the hype of the game for the first 2 weeks and they trash everyone. Tell people to kill themselves, they say disgusting things, they even try to get banned, to the point of even harassing someone, doxing them, whatever. Eventually they move on to another game. I started seeing it in Arcade, and those same people have been in every single MMO since. Does that make the entire community toxic? No, it doesn't. Swords of Legends Online has a niche community, that's for sure. It's smaller than most, but it also has some of the most helpful players that I've seen in recent years. Players that will teach you the classes that you want to learn, mechanics in a dungeon or raid, system features that you're not entirely sure how they work, and they'll even go out of their way to help you. I've seen this many times over the past few months that I've been playing. And yes, there's always going to be a small bunch of players that are always going to be toxic. It's just the nature of things. There's always good and bad. So to call an entire community toxic in a game is mind-boggling to me, because even I am part of that community. And as far as I'm aware, I'm not toxic. So those are just some of the reasons why people have quit. For me, however, I feel players have quit because there's no communication from Gameforge outside of content updates and little bits of pieces of information on store changes. Though one might argue that they've just had back-to-back vacations after launch, which can be evidenced simply by reading the Swords of Legends Discord, and that's caused an abundance of misinterpretations. But one way or another, it is how it is. Gameforge definitely has had their hands off with this game in terms of marketing and advertising. There's never once been an investment in Twitch drops, in talking to high-profile content creators, or going all in to increase their daily active user base. Personally, I believe the developer is so in control of the game, which they are down to the cash shop, that Gameforge just doesn't feel like it's much of an investment to really go all in with advertising. Again, it's an opinion, we all have them, but who knows if there's any truth to that. Regardless, it's true. The game isn't marketed well, there's barely any advertising, and the only way to really know about this game is if you have a friend or heard it from someone that you may watch or know, maybe got a little interested in finding out more. The tactic does not work well with this game at all. I have spoken to Gameforge. As a content creator and as being partnered with Gameforge, I'm actually able to talk to the staff, and I have brought this to their attention. I think the game needs more help. Whether they listen, it's out of my hands. So here are my closing thoughts. Swords of Legends is not a dead game. It isn't a game that just doesn't get any updates, it isn't a game that's toxic or that forces you to spend so much money and time that you feel like it's just not worth it. It's extremely the opposite. It's an alive game. Just like Jeff Bezos' Alive Girl. It gets constant updates. Problem is that the content gets cleared so much by the players, they get bored. It's a game that is completely casual in nature. It doesn't force you to do anything other than enjoy the time that you have on it. It has a community that's always been trolly, but helpful and wonderful. And yes, it's niche as and yes, the overall player numbers are down. There's no reason there shouldn't be when this game doesn't force you to stay on whatsoever, especially when there are massive games like New World available right now that urge you to scratch that FOMO itch. Does that mean that the state of the game is good? Not really. Gameforge needs to step up and treat this game like a treasure, because I guarantee you if they keep failing like this, someone will take this treasure and publish it themselves. Maybe even the developers. It's not unheard of, we've seen developers self-publish more and more nowadays. Swords of Legends Online is a game from China that offers absolutely no pay to win, that offers no advantage to paying players, that offers its players a casual adventure with a very, very long storyline. And yes, a lot of players do quit before they get to Student 1 because it is a very long storyline. and the only way to level up is to go through the storyline itself. Now, I'm just gonna leave some perspective on my take. Before this, I was on Terra console for a long time. I was playing that for a long time. This game came out in July, and in its 3 months has offered more content updates than I've seen in the entirety of Terra in 2 years. But who knows? Maybe I'm just built different and see different things. Where everyone sees a failure, I see the best MMORPG in recent years that just needs a little push. Well, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and click that adorable fucking bell to know when I upload a brand new video. And don't forget to come join my Discord if you want to chat and hang out. Much love, and as always, till next time, friends.